All right, hello everybody. Hello, welcome. So if you came over from the first half of the episode, we talked about Elflines Online Magic Returns, which actually dropped today on May 29th. If you haven't seen that half, you'll probably be wondering how we got here. But just go back to Emmerron's channel, watch the first half. But if you're here now, you might be wondering, what are we doing? Well, I am a filthy Redditor, okay? I like getting into Reddit. Now, mind you, I'm not one of those Redditors. I actually shower. I'm kidding. All right.
She also doesn't push her glasses up nearly as often as most Redditors do. So on that front, I deeply appreciate it.
No, but I do adjust my contact lens. Anyway, actually, hold on. You know what? There. All right.
Beautiful. No, actually, I'm so okay. Thank you for doing that.
We'll put the Chiron on. There we go. So anyway, with that, we are going to be going over to Reddit. On Emmerron's side, for anyone who might be here on the live stream, Emmerron will have r/Reddit Cyberpunk RED pulled up because that's where we're going. We're not going to be going to weird places as Reddit, but yeah, we are going to r/Cyberpunk RED. And we're going to take a cursory glance at the greater community here. Of course, we have our Talsorian Games' official Discord, John's fan Discord, but we are going to go out to the public posts and just see all the nice things people have to say.
Yeah.
So, let's start off with an absolute hitter right here. New Elflines drop. There are now 95 pages of Elflines material as of today, which, mind you, the fact that somebody is keeping track of these numbers is impressive.
I mean, it's not particularly hard if you do what I've done, because I've got a subfolder on my computer that I just drop all the yellow shit into. Also, chat, prepare yourselves. I'm going to flip us back to the screen that shows all that. All right, everyone, here we go. So yeah, this is the post in question, so you can read along if you feel so inclined.
Yeah.
This will be great.
Which, honestly, I think this is kind of, just kind of fun to actually see these kinds of stats. Black Chrome has 168 pages. The 2 CEMK books, but there's 3 books in the Cyberpunk Edgerunners Mission Kit. The rule book, the jacket, and the Edgerunners Handbook.
Well, they're probably referring to the non-jacket books, because those are more like rule books.
Okay, yeah, so that's 84 pages. And then the 12 days DLCs, which I think with that kind of number does include Cutie Myths, is 43 pages. Which are probably the most popular ones they've put out, obviously, because gear, guns, other stuff. Why do we have so much ELO? Is it just they feel like it, or is there actually a measurable demand for Elflines content? I don't think I've seen more than 5 serious discussions of it here, if that. Is there much enthusiasm for Elflines here, or that I'm just not seeing? So, I do think that there are certain pockets of the community, sort of like here at Wireheads, where we get super excited about Elflines, partially because it's something that's super fucking relatable to us. Because when Elflines to TCG dropped,
oh my god,
the just diamond, look, it's just
yeah. No, I mean, for me, seeing that James went that far and made a TCG that could be done with playing cards, one, very cool. Technically that is a CCG, but we'll ignore that. Very cool. And it was neat to see, I don't know, it's always fun to see James do game design that dovetails in with the rest of Cyberpunk. But it's very much novel game design of its own right, Because technically he could have released ELO the TCG as something completely unrelated to Cyberpunk and ELO itself, and just done that over in James Hutt Games, and it would have been a fun little competitive solitaire-ish sort of thing, which is kind of how that game plays. And there would have been nothing wrong with that. But the fact that he found a way to merge everything together and make that all work in concert was pretty awesome. I think that that's really, really cool. And this is no different. I think that the ELO Magic Returns DLC is very much like, hey, every good fantasy game needs a magic system. Why doesn't this game have one? And while there's lore for explaining why, it is cool to see not only the narrative push, like this is a new expansion to the game, but also the fact that there is there is now a fairly robust magic system that is partly, it partly brings to mind other magic systems I've seen. Like, technically, I think this is like World of Darkness's magic system kind of operates in a similar way. There's the Witchers can turn into damage against your character if you cast spells. Some of the Borg spells require you sacrifice parts of your life. Like there's a lot of precedent for something like this. Blood magic's always cool, and this is basically like codified blood magic, which I think is always fun. Yeah. I like there being more game systems, not less. And I think the more expansive you get systems like ELO, the better the game is for it. Because again, as I kind of alluded to in my side of the episode, you can do a lot with that rules stuff that comes with that, even outside of the video game. You can do stuff in the quote-unquote real world in Cyberpunk that allows for those same things to take place.
Yeah. So, in general, it's very much when James does, feel like posting something, but it's also, I've noticed that a lot of James's posts with Elflines Online, they are satire towards, the game, like the game dev community, especially big game devs. And we'll talk a little bit more about like some of the inspirations for some of the different expansions with James soon enough. I mean, we've talked a little bit about it, like with WoW and a little bit with Magic the Gathering or other card games. But, this most recent one was because, some certain, game developers, Wizard, I had to scratch my throat there. Just happened to put AI art on some cards and in their books and, trying to sell them to people for a large amount of money. Just wow.
And that legal, this is all alleged. Don't get all uppity. These are alleged. However, the common sense naked eye would look at some of the artwork. There was one in particular that was a piece from 2020 that James showed us in the production of this that very much was like a call to action almost for this. That was side-by-side artwork from one of the Cyberpunk 2020 books. I don't remember which one off the top of my head. And artwork that was on a Magic the Gathering card. And the resemblances were far too uncanny to like, let me see if I can actually just pull it up and drag it over into the screen without revealing our whole chat history with him, because I feel like this is very relevant and it's kind of important for people to understand that when we say there is a bad part to AI, and it is when you are a multi-million or multi-billion dollar company and your artist, here we go, I found it. Let me open this link. Here we go. So this is what James showed to us. So my face unfortunately cuts the top part of this, so I'll read it out for you all. Hey, Faye Dalton. Do you mind not stealing my work on highly paid public commercial commissions in the game which I make my living and hold, or in the genre, excuse me, which I make my living and hold my reputation dear? This is criminal and theft. What other works have you stolen? So this is Cyberpunk 2020 Ravagers. or Ravengers by Donato Giancola. So that is this. These two images are the, the trim down, the full art kind of spread of this. And then this is a card from just last year called Trouble in Pairs. I don't know the set symbol for this in Magic the Gathering because I don't play the game very much. But as we can see, that's very suspicious. That's very, very like nearly uncanny with the way the steps are placed, with the way there's this like halo in the background that's just been like downshaded a little bit, the archway behind the person in question. Like this is like definitely, though it's alleged plagiarism, this looks very hard to defend for any company, any artist who has moral scruples or cares about the reputation. This is so fucked up to look at this. So this is why we went on that whole tirade at the start of my half of the episode today, talking about why AI sucks. This is the dark side of it, because this is a card from a game that we all know makes way too much money every single year. And that is just, it's not defendable. It is indefensible how you can be this close. Even if this isn't AI, if it's not, that's even worse in my opinion. Because at least with the AI, you have the null defense of like, oh, I can't control what it pulls from. You could control your use of it, but if you then are an artist and you just copied it, then that's even worse. And no matter which way this goes, the fact that Ray Dalton is a credited person at the bottom of the card here, Ray, that is your reputation here. It doesn't matter which excuse you're using on this, it is indefensible. Like that is awful. That is just trash. So we come back to the Reddit post here. So I find some of the comments here a little interesting. It's, some of them must be really popular with the staff at RTG. Not really sure. My group certainly doesn't touch it, but then again, we play in 2077 anyway. This is very fair. Speculatively, could be them testing various assignments, make them cut their teeth on purely optional content, see how it goes. Happen to enjoy writing it clearly, and it does begin to provide a funny alternative to current fantasy TTRPGs. Could also catch people who like MMO stuff, like us. This is us. We're included in that comment. Could be testing stuff for the new location in The Witcher, given Red's popularity. Launching fully fledged systems like Magic could lead to credence, or could lend credence, rather, I think is what they meant to say there. But yeah, this could be a new system for Witcher, potentially. We don't know. And makes me wish Artel Sorian would talk more about behind the scenes stuff like production on DLCs and whatnot. I'd love more insight. I mean, the thing is, they are notoriously good at trying to hold their hand until they're ready to release something. So you're not probably going to get a ton of insight. We do get some of it. Like if we get James on here, I'm sure that'd be an interesting sort of question to run by him, to say, was there a reason you've developed a whole Magic system within the confines of Interlock? Or is it just because we enjoyed the idea and wanted to do something with it? I don't know. Like, Diamond, what are your thoughts on all of that?
If we're looking at that specific comment, I really do feel that like the history on Elflines Online has kind of gotten buried a little bit in the sand here. Because originally, I don't remember if you saw it, but Elflines was originally supposed to just be a one and done April Fool's Day DLC.
Yes.
Like, it was just literally did it for fun, added some extra, added some extra life to the world, and created some alternative content to the typical fantasy TTRPGs, and catch people that like the MMO stuff. It's very much, it is a pointed finger at the MMO community, and that's fine. And then, everyone really liked it, and it kind of caught, Artel off guard, so expansion pack 1 came out. And then Derek Seiler's guide to Elflines Online. And then Elflines to TCG. And now, the long-awaited Magic DLC is here, baby. Yep. That's just kind of how I see it. Like,
yeah,
it was made for fun, but also later on, it's kind of become a great way for satire to be told about the gaming industry.
Yes. Well, and I do want to also point out to the poster here, the OP on this. 95 pages. This does not mean, this is not as significant as you think it is as a statistic. Because when we look at Black Chrome is 168 pages. Okay, cool. Well, Black Chrome is literally an expansive gear list with night market rules and economy rules, and like that's how it uses its 168 pages.
Yeah.
The CEMK books are both an expansion of some of the lore we have in Cyberpunk and an expansion of the rules of Red into the 2070s. And these 12 days of DLCs coming out to about 43 pages, like that's more gear lists, right? Meanwhile, these 95 pages of Elflines material, there is a not insignificant chunk of that, which is literally a walkthrough for playing through the game. Which, like, you as a GM could either use as loose understanding of the game's world and how it works, or you could, like Diamond has done, make a whole campaign around that, using that as your reference document. Like, there's a lot that can be done with that one book, but by and large, you could ignore it and it would not invalidate Elflines, right? Same thing kind of applies for Expansion Pack 1. All Expansion Pack 1 really gives you is a couple of 20 persons lists, right? So, like, I don't know. I don't think that all page counts are created equal. And I think that there's a lot, if you're looking for only the stuff in there that has like hard-coded substance, there's far, far less than 95 pages. Like this DLC accounts for about half of it. And I would argue this is one of the most substantive Elflines Online expansions or DLCs we've gotten so far. And it's only because it's like literally an entire system document, basically. And it finally gives us a proper bestiary for Elflines Online beyond just some refactored monsters we got in Derek Seiler's guide. And those, even when we got those, were like 4 or 5 pages. They're not that many. So yeah, like 95 pages here does not mean the same as 95 pages of Black Chrome. That is not the same thing. That is a false equivalence that you're drawing there.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, also, it's free stuff.
Yes.
It is free stuff that's being added, and also on top of that, one of the other things that Derek Seiler himself provides is a window into the once was the window into the common man, and I think it would be reasonable to say the early stages of rank 1 Rocker Boy, maybe rank 2.
I mean, I would go so far as to say Derek is scraping toward rank 4, I think. He's probably got enough fans out there that obviously, like, these guides pick up enough people to have him afford biosculpts and stuff like that. He's not an edge runner. We know that much.
Right. I was thinking, like, back to, like, early on with Derek, and now, like, he's living good. He's got an apartment. Yep. Not a cargo container anymore.
I mean,
we literally have watched the evolution of Derek over time, which I love this.
Yeah. But so we're watching a rocker boy in their element in a lot of ways here. Like, this is what it means to be a lower, not even low rank, but like a lower rank rocker boy within Night City. This is like quite literally the epitome of a rank 4 rocker boy.
Mm-hmm.
So, go
I
ahead.
did send you the post that Valkyrie wanted us to have a look at. It is actually from one of our listeners, Sparky McDibbin. Hello. Also, just as a friendly note, to anyone who, we might be looking at your post, don't worry. This is just us giving our commentary.
Yeah.
I think nothing less of any of my other community members, unless you like to bully your players.
Yeah.
That's about it.
No. And the one, before we dive into Sparky's, I did just want to because this was my post. So this is something where I just wanted to kind of cover this as well. Because this was kind of the first, these are the first reactions to the DLC.
I'm trying to find where your post is.
I'll link you it in Discord.
Sweet.
There you go. So my post just said, for those of you who didn't see it live the other night, myself and Diamond Dust got to check out this month's DLC a little early. If you want to give it a look, the whole thing is on Spotify below as part of the podcast we run called Wireheads. I hope you all enjoy. And a lot of the responses, we had a mix. It was very mixed. I wasn't expecting, and it's fine to not like something, guys. This is not me criticizing your right to dislike things. That is so far from where I ever want to be as a creator.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to discuss certain levels of disagreement here. Where there was, where was it? As someone who usually runs for newer players, ELO, just completely different system. If I'm bringing it up, I'm not going deeper than narrative. Not trying to make new players learn another TTRPG rule set inside a bigger TTRPG. Neat but distracting. I mean, mini games I think are not distracting, and I think that as you get more proficient with Cyberpunk RED, it's really easy to just use it. It's interlock. It is literally the game that we've all played. It is the game we are still playing. It doesn't change anything. And the best part is you only need before this Magic DLC, you need one range table to understand how combat worked in it. These range tables expand that a little more, but again, you don't have to interact with it if you don't want to. It's DLC, it's free, and it's optional.
And I mean, for new players, yeah, sure. New players should, normally start learning on the core set as is. But, you can only, run on the core rulebook for so long before you need to embellish it with other things. And that's where, mini games like Stickball, Roller Derby, Elflines Online come in. That's where they help fill the gap.
Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead.
No. Continue.
So, and I've been looking through here, and I did also notice someone else just saying that, it's not a gripping aspect of the game for you, and, that's okay.
Yeah.
Not everybody comes to Cyberpunk RED for the same things. However, one of the other things that, I've used Elflines for personally, it is a plot device. It's a great way to connect people that, there should be no reason these people know each other besides, I know this person through Elflines.
Yeah.
They happen to live on the north side of town. I live down in Santo Domingo. That kind of, that's kind of how close you get with some of these people here.
Yeah. Well, and I think a pretty valid thing that someone else pointed out is and I've mentioned it on the podcast here before, is making the game into a front where people are doing criminal shit using the game as a front, essentially. Because that's happening. And someone else pointed their fixer, they had a fixer in their game who would only meet and do things in ELO. And it's that is exactly what it exists for. You don't need to interact with the full rule set, but if your players were very invested, or you wanted, maybe it's an off week where only 2/3 of your players could play, and you still want to run something that week, and enough of them are invested in the MMO that you can say, okay, well, then let's put this together, let's play some combat, whatever. But Cyberpunk has always been a game that is more about the whole than it is about any one aspect of the game, right? Like combat's a part of it, but it's not the whole focus like it is in other RPGs. Exploration is somewhat important, but again, it's not singularly important like it is in other RPGs. Things like narrative are very important, but they're heavily influenced not just by what the GM wants to do, but by the players and their life paths and like how those interplay against it. That's why I say, and I've experienced now, you run Tales of the Red Street Stories for 2 different groups, and those 2 groups are going to run that same pre-written book way differently because they are different people and they respond to the city in different ways. And this is just one more layer to the city that they can interact with and be part of and all of that. So now, do we want to look at the one Valkyrie has, or do you, if you have something more to say, please say it.
We'll go to the one that Sparky has, which also came out last week. Old Man Yells at Elflines. All right, and it is a wall of text.
Oh, that's fun. Those are my favorite.
So, bear with me here, Sparky. I am going to do my best to get through this and try and provide you some insight, because I really had to kind of chew on this for a bit. I think I did post a little bit in here, but here we go. Alright, so this one I think I've had in the tank for a while now. I don't like to bitch about free shit, but I really don't get anything from the recent ELO DLCs. We have at least 4 ELO DLCs. We're about to get another. Proponents of ELO generally deploy 4 arguments in support for this content. You don't use it for the mechanics in the DLCs, you use it for the narrative. ELO is a great tool for constructing gigs and hustles.
It is.
Even if you don't use the mechanics as is, you still take those mechanics and repurpose them to suit your needs.
You do.
Which is another thing we have. They let some players feel seen, and they can see their characters doing something that the player also loves.
Yep.
They think it's fun, which, yeah. I think it's worthwhile to engage with these in good faith, so I will try to use the Steel Man version of each of these points going forward. Firstly, ELO is very useful from a narrative perspective. I used it several times during my Cyberpunk games to solid effect, either as a tool for remote interaction, a source for gigs, or just as a character trait. It's generally great, and I love doing this. However, I think it's important to note that we have had the basic toolkit for this since the original ELO DLC dropped. That DLC included solid GM guidance on how to incorporate ELO into your Cyberpunk game. Possible hooks and leads that can lead into interesting developments, etc. So if we had the toolkit ever since DLC 1, how much value did DLC 2 through 4 add? Honestly, not much. DLC 2 gave us some NPCs which you can meet in the game. That's decent content. DLC 3 gave us an overview of the ELO world, which really didn't add that much. DLC 4 was a card game, which didn't do much for ELO, but did give us permission to do the exact same kind of gigs and ideas that we were running for ELO in Meat Space for cards.
Okay.
So, let's go one at a time here on these. So,
yeah, so do we want to pause there and discuss that?
Yeah.
Because I think that's okay. So, Diamond, this technically is your half the episode, and I feel like I've usurped a good part of it already. So please, give me your thoughts first.
We're good. All right. So, all right. As someone who, over on Cybernation Uncensored, ran a campaign that had Elflines Online as a major piece in this game, all those DLCs provide, a robust amount of content that doesn't even have to do with just the game itself. Heck, even in Street Stories, you meet one of the people from DLC 2. You know what? Let me go grab the DLCs.
To be quite fair, that DLC 2 NPC, so we're talking about John Doe, he also shows up in the core rulebook. So it more is like elucidation and building up of his character a step further than it is like proper introduction. I will give them that much.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But then again, we also see a variety of other people that you could use for very interesting either opposition, allies. Hell, I had Nyx finally show up IRL to confront the party over some shit that had happened in game. Which, they were able to, just be like, all right, look, put the stupid polymer one shot down. We can talk about this. But, and I want to make this very clear. I am very passionate about Elflines Online, more for the fact that it has given players permission to add extra layers to this onion that is Cyberpunk RED.
Yep. Yeah. One, it's... go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So the big thing I want to also point out here is that DLC 2, in my opinion, of all of them, is the weakest of the now 5 that we have. And even it has a ton of stuff that is needed, right? You need to know who are the most popular characters in the game. Well, we know Granny Ed's very popular. We know Derek Seiler is very popular. There are some other well-known, what we in Final Fantasy XIV refer to on our servers as our local cryptids, right? There's the guy Lunchbox, who hasn't taken his armor off since 3 expansions earlier. There's the one, I forget the name off the top of my head, but they're the one who found themselves somehow in a high-level zone suddenly, and they're trying to fight who?
Fucking Burr.
Burr, yeah, thank you. They found themselves off in fuck you land for a low rank, and they're still out there trying to fight their way back to civilization. I've been that player in Final Fantasy XI back when I was a kid. I've been in that exact position before. I had someone help cart me out there, and then they logged off, and I tried to get back, and I couldn't figure out how to. And I was kind of soft locked, which was a whole adventure in and of itself. These are interesting things. They're interesting stories. They're interesting characters, and they serve purpose on both ends of the screen, right? In terms of whether you're in the real world or in the ELO side of things, they can make appearances. They can show up. You can meet them. Even if they're just idle chatter for NPCs in your world, they'll make your world feel more alive. This is good. But for the other things, DLC 3 gave us a literal bestiary. It was our first time where we got a bestiary. And it gave us some ideas for how to incorporate some of these legendary items that we've heard told to us, Shadowfang's cloak, the Scarlet Black bow. Things like this are very much, they're in a realm of space that we need to acknowledge is there. And we honestly, it's one thing to get GM guidance saying yeah, just use mooks that we have published in the core rulebook as monsters, just doing this, that, and the other thing. I will always say templates showing you how that looks is always better than just saying use this and do these following things to it. It is so much better to have a critical example of this is what it looks like when you have a Beowulf. This is what it looks like when you have a Restless Spirit. This is what a Dragland stats are. When you do that, it gives you so much more reference to then if you want to cook your own, you can do that. It's so much easier to do that. But yeah, that's the value there. And the TCG honestly just has some neat novelty stuff that you could get on your real life character. I've used it for several players who are ELO fans to have it as random gift shop stuff. Those of you who have played through Reaping the Reaper will know that there is a V-Arcade that is featured in there. And I set the V-Arcade in my world a little before the gig took place, so the players could see it before what happens there happens. And they had a giant ELO cabinet that was one of those big we're simulating a massive battle on the Elder Tree, and you're playing in a VR arena essentially. And so in the gift shop on the way out, one of the players whose character was very into ELO I'm like, yeah, you see Swords of Arvish. Like, they're 500 eddies a piece, but they're there. You can buy them. She's like, I'm going to buy 2. And I'm like, hell yeah. So it's a way to like really characterize the world around you and like add novelty where you otherwise would very much be stuck improvising. And while like I would argue every good GM should get good at improvising, there are plenty of skill levels where below that line of like you're really good at doing that, you're going to struggle to come up with that on the fly. So just having a couple of things that spark inspiration where that's concerned is so much better than missing that element from the game world. But yeah, that's my spiel.
So one of the other things that DLC number 3 also offers, for anyone who might be wanting to run a campaign in Elflines Online, you literally have everything from right at the beginning all the way up to the end of the Miasma Land campaign. So that way you have it all, and all you gotta do is fill it in with all the little side quests that you and your MMO loving heart desire. Because of course you need to send them out to go collect at least 5 bearwolf pelts before they get to move on to other things.
Oh no. See, the pelts are the easy quest. The asses only have a 20% drop rate, and those are needed for the quest that follows that one.
As a crafter in FF14 trying to get certain beast drops.
Yeah, exactly.
But then, of course, we have Elflines Online to TCG, which, sure, it brings a TCG into the game. Fancy. Lovely. I know some of you people really don't care about that, and that's okay. When I say you people, it's just because I kind of got out of doing TCGs for a while. But it does bring something important that we have not seen until this current time. We actually have ways to use gambling in Elflines Online to TCG for pulling off cheats. And it gives examples of how to use the gambling skill.
Yep.
And also, I mean, of course, we get to see like what some weird, what some weird devices are in here as well. So, that being said, Magic Returns brings the Gonk stat block. It brings a variety of other forms of attacks that could be somehow simulated into Cyberpunk RED as is.
Yep.
You have, which also, of course, that does lead into that second argument of you can take some of the mechanics and repurpose them. I suppose the gold standard here is the ELO trading card game, where you take these mechanics and repurpose them for a street level card game. However, what would have been more valuable than looking for gambling rules? Using the same page space to lay out rules for gambling in Night City. Probable players in the gambling scene, winners, losers, how things get fixed. And it's more because like when these DLCs are written, they are written with the purpose of the topic at hand. I've noticed that like whenever James writes any DLCs, they all are very much to the purpose that is initially stated on the DLC.
Yeah.
Which again points to diminishing returns and values according to this. Thirdly, I'm glad. Sorry, Emmerron, go ahead.
Yeah. So on this point, I will say this: would you, and I speak as the royal you out there, our audience, or the people who watch this, right? Whether you're fans of ours or this is the first time you're tuning in, would you prefer a game rule set absent context, like here's how to gamble in Night City? Okay, cool. Well, the gambling rules that are laid out in this DLC take up, I think, a page, maybe 2 tops. And so would you really prefer that the rest of those pages just not exist, and that they take some of the novelty out of the fact the rules are laid in with this other game? Or would you prefer that we have both? You know, I am a fan of more, like more is good. The more we have there, again, I think that they serve as positive examples of how those rule sets might be applied and how they might be used and how they could be utilized. And I think that failing having that is not good. I think that it's legitimately like that is less interesting to me. Like, sure, like you're saying, you could expand it to say, here are some popular gamblers in Night City, but like that is so much less flavorful. Like if all you know are the poker circuit or the, you know, the roulette players or the, you know, craps players in the city, it's like we already could have kind of guessed our way into some of that, right? Like it's not hard. Those rules aren't particularly hard to follow or codify one way or another. But having card tricks and stuff like that be a thing, like to me, that is such a massive part of like any card game, whether it's one that you typically gamble on or a trading card game or whatever. We see like controversy and things around that swirl in real life all the time when someone's caught cheating at like a big Magic tournament or a big Pokemon tournament. Like even within like my own niche community, like Cardfight Vanguard, the thing that this little medal here is from, like we have had our share of controversy in that community over cheating. Like it's very much a thing that requires a level of dexterity that like cheating in most gambling does not really account for. And so I think including it with the TCG expansion is both flavorful and more interesting than just offering us gambling rules in a standalone fashion.
So I suppose to wrap this up though, thirdly, I'm glad WoW fans have something to see themselves in. I'm glad you folks find the ELO rules fun. This, and I mean this genuinely good, but is it worth 4 whole DLCs?
Yes.
Which, I'm sorry, again, diminishing points return. The sum of all this is the utility of the ELO DLCs for me as a GM has declined to the point where I really can't get excited about them now. They just kind of burn me out. So what's my point? Why write this whole thing up just to bitch about something I never paid a cent for? Because I love the idea of ELO. I just wish I could use it more directly in my games without having to convince my players to entirely make new characters and play a game that isn't the game they signed up for. Now, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, right? So I figured I'd write up some things I'd like to see pertaining to ELO. Some people might like these, some people might not, and that's okay. I'd like to hear from people on both sides of the line in the comments. By the way, Jay Gray has a comment in here that I am going to jump to, but I'm not going to scrub the entire comment section because it gets hefty and we're already 43 minutes in. Let's see, where are we at? I'll ask folks a favor. If you're going to downvote someone's ideas in the comments, please drop a comment and let them know why you disagree. Hard to learn if you don't get good feedback. Obviously, feel free to downvote this post. I'm not your dad, but for everyone else in the comments, let's discuss, not dogpile. Which, I mean, of course, but it is Reddit, so it will happen.
It'll happen.
I have seen it happen. Here's what I'd like to see. A full-blown ELO campaign that incorporates the existing DLCs and works them into a full-bore adventure scenarios. Obviously not proposing this to be free content. This is a moonshot on this list. I don't have any reason to hope for it, but it would be absolutely incredible if we did for Melissa Eversole, which, I mean... Actually, I'm going to keep that in my back pocket.
So I will say I'm working on something around this already.
Same.
As a homebrew project. So like with regard to this, there are those of us in the community that are excited about this, that are working on stuff like this. There's actually an adventure from it that I will be including as part of the wider campaign that you can find on my Patreon called Pay to Win. If you're in my Discord, I also have it linked there under my homebrew content. But yeah, if you want to see an adventure written up like this, it's not an RTG adventure, sure, but like fans can do fine. I think I'd like to forward that mine is. I was satisfied with and proud enough of it that I've given a copy of this to James himself. Now he hasn't read it yet, as far as I'm aware, but like I was confident enough to hand it to members of the RTG staff to say like, hey, look what I made. So like we do have some people in the community like Diamond and I that are definitely doing this. We're working towards it. So that's point one. So what's point two then?
Yeah. ELO related gigs or scream sheets. These are immediately useful, have a lot of replayability or flexibility for GMs and players. It's also some of the hardest to create. I'm not holding my breath here. Actually, I've made a scream sheet. I am working on actually putting it onto paper. I took my basic notes, ran the adventure for a couple different groups. Works well. It's gonna be you'll be seeing a scream sheet pretty soon. But also, I am working on a card heist gig. I'm just little writer's block, but I'm working on it. Ways to work ELO into a social game. Alternate rules for ELO face downs. Oh yeah, I soloed your mom and the Heart of Miasma both last night. What kind of information people on site might have and how GMs can get that into the player's hands. Track out an ELO player in Meat Space to track an ELO player in Meat Space, which, I mean, to be honest, that you just make into an adventure itself.
Yeah, that's social engineering, and that's like very doable. That's not particularly hard to do. The checks you already have.
Factions and how they interact with ELO. Is there a Maelstrom only guild? Who's playing in it? Is anyone playing from inside a secure net arch, thereby introducing vulnerability into their systems? How does Netwatch police cyberspace inside ELO? Which agents might my PCs run into? And then ways to abstract ELO progression using one cyberpunk character. For GMs, this would like to include this narrative element without necessitating full immersion. Something that would mean a player would make a check to see, did the crew effectively run that dungeon, and did they get anything cool out of it? So, in my opinion, in the way I ran it, and if we're talking about progression, like with the player characters during days that they're in Elflines Online, these characters are still these players are still, their characters are still interacting with each other. Yeah. This is literally the party deciding, okay guys, we're going to go do a raid tonight. Let's see how well we make this happen. And this is, the party spending time together, doing a challenging thing together. They still are going to improve. Even if it isn't, hey, I shot 40 mooks down the alleyway this past week, or some shit like that. And I do feel a lot of this, as I've always said when it comes to Cyberpunk RED, create your own. Oh, hi, Ghost. Welcome. What do you got to say? I think a lot of people skip the part where you can pay to boost your character. Yes, you can just pay to win. You can just buy rank 10 characters. ELO is a great way to play with side builds or have a little power fantasy in the early game. In my opinion, perfect option for filler gigs, absolutely. But still with enough depth at your table that really likes it. You can really sink your teeth into its plot setting. Which, the big thing is, when I look at Elflines, it is very much, James has given us tools and other things to add to Elflines Online over time, but it's kind of a sandbox for us to run, like, create like side quests for the characters, and also make other interactions happen in game that you wouldn't have happen otherwise.
Right.
So of course we go to Jay Gray. And of course, this is in response to why do we have so much content for Elflines Online? From Jay Gray, sometimes we design for us. James wanted to finish his Elflines idea, which I know James had been working on Elflines over a series of different spots, and he had fun writing it. That's worth its weight in gold. Plus, we do know campaigns sometimes drift into ELO for a season just to change the pace, and this completes the scratch of that itch. That's one of the joy of free monthly DLCs. We can explore the wild hairs in our brains. Heck, that's the entire reason I wrote Mixing Drinks, Changing Lives. In other words, the Valhalla DLC. It was something that brought me personally an incredible amount of joy. Honestly, I'm surprised more GMs haven't used ELO 3 to throw Biotechnica monsters at players.
Yep.
Frick. All right. I mean, I was getting there.
Well,
I was getting there. Damn it.
Well, now that we also have cyber pets, like this had just become a very real thing. Like, that's not even hard to do. And I agree, like we've already talked a little bit about this, but I think that this ELO DLC will be a gold mine for homebrewers to dig up inspiration from. Yeah, we have all kinds of range tables. Like I said, there's a whole novel AoE range bracket now that we have that doesn't exist in regular Cyberpunk RED yet with any weapons. So like that novel bracket is already a very cool thing to look at. Just say like, yeah, I'm creating a pulse weapon. Here's how the pulse weapon will work. I've got a range table for it. I've got a field for it. Like, it's great.
And also on top of this, like how to use it directly at your table. It is literally an MMO that can be used to help fill in the gap between, two gigs. Yep. So that way, there isn't just, a lot of like, quiet downtime going on. There's something happening. Not every DLC, and I have said this a few times before, behind closed doors or within, player circles or whatnot. Not every DLC is going to be, things that kill, things that cover, things that, the player character is always going to hold. Like, and there's going to be DLCs for everyone.
Yeah, but they aren't going to come back to back for those people either. Like, a reality of DLCs that we need to acknowledge in saying that is that every month a new DLC comes out, and it's going to be a DLC that someone appreciates and someone else sees less of a point in. Like, I haven't used investigations much, but I recognize that they're very, very useful to the right GM and the right game.
Is so helpful.
Yeah, like it's a good DLC on its face because it adds a system that we didn't have before, and it allows you to use that in ways to do certain gigs now in a novel way that we did not have previously. I think that that's incredibly good. Even if I haven't used it, that doesn't make it useless, or it doesn't reduce its value, or go into, as you were saying, Sparky, diminishing returns for anything. It is literally just, I don't use this, but I see immense value in it. Like, for as much a fan as both of us are about ELO, I have very rarely used ELO's full rule set in my gigs at my table. Like, but the fact that it is there means that if my players ever did want to dive in, I do know how to run it. I know how it's supposed to work. And I think that knowing those things and having them available is a big reason to just be open to it, right? It's not about it. Every DLC needs to meet the wants or needs of the many. It is entirely so that we get new novel things that otherwise wouldn't justify a book on their own, right? Just a thought.
Now, for a change of something different that just kind of caught my eye, Infininymph has posted naked edge runners, no armor in public. I want to have a look at this. Oh, wait. Before that, Actually, just so that way I could throw it out there. Dildo HJZ. Right out after that. Why does John Freeman use a cyber chair rather than getting cyber limbs? Just gonna tackle this one here. Yep. I showed one of my players the cyber chair DLC, and they mocked it for being stolid. Stolid?
Let me look up that word.
Stolid?
How's it spelled?
I'm STOLID. There's no reason
stolid, heavy, dull, stupid, not easily moved, lacking and destitute
What the heck?
or of susceptibility, denoting dullness or impassiveness as a stolid person, stolid appearance. Synonyms to which are doltish or wooden. In other words, they think it's stupid and wanted to sound smart saying that.
Oh. Says there's no reason for a bulky chair when cyber legs are better. How do you justify the use of a cyber chair?
Neurodegenerative disease, baby. That is the simple.
Yeah. Well, and spoiler alert. Just a spoiler alert. John Freeman is old as fuck. John was a young man, or wasn't a young man even when he opened up the Forlorn Hope back in 2020 and married his wife, Marianne. There's at least a good 10, 15 year difference between the two.
Yep.
You gotta love old love. Anyway, John is old enough to where his body is going to reject cyberware. Well, you probably can't.
He also is said to have ALS because of more recent books.
Because of the Gen Zero medical grade cyberware he got during his military service.
Yep. So
and
yeah.
Also on top of that, one of the important things now I am trying to remember. They changed their name, and I think they go by a different name and different identity, but they were one. I'm not going to use the name, but the person that was consulted for this, who also is in the artwork for Cyber Chairs, their name had changed, but I think it was okay. I'll have to double check on that with.
They didn't want to change their name in the credits. That was something.
They didn't. Okay, yeah. That was something that was talked about. All right. So Thompson, I'll just refer to them as Thompson for now, just because I don't remember what they went by. But they were consulted because of needing visibility for those that use, other mobility devices in RPGs. That's how we got the battle chair over in Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. Yep. And we got the cyber chair here. And also on top of that, you can't cyber every problem away, Chumba. You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my groups right now, their bed tech has just came out that I have cellular necrosis. I am dying. And it's like, well, can't we just put you in an FBC? It's like, my brain will still rot.
Yep.
So they're having to go and find a project that Biotechnica was involved in that they shelved because it was just cheaper to keep making it was more profitable to keep making the meds while the folks that were experiencing symptoms were on their way out the door instead of finding a cure for it. So, it's one of those things where, in the case of John, there was very good reasons for why John needed the mobility devices. And for others, it's just a preference for, maybe you don't want to lose all that humanity. And it's a different form of representation in, the Red.
Well, and I think that the characters that are utilizing those mobility aids instead of using cyber arms or legs or what have you, I think that is deeply important because even in a world where you can replace a limb, you could reinforce your spine with chrome, We now have cyber spines very recently, but like not everyone's nerve endings are going to work with that. Like there's all kinds of stuff that can degenerate your nerve endings or your muscle, or things like multiple sclerosis, ALS, any neurodegenerative disease is going to render cyberware inoperable beyond a certain level, right? So like there's still a need for mobility aids that go beyond just chrome your legs, chrome your arms, chrome your body, whatever. Like Diamond just said, you cannot chrome everything away. And Ghost actually points out in chat here another reason why cyber chairs are neat is that the cyber chairs are also a tech's wet dream for modding, and if your campaign has good downtime, yeah, you could take full advantage of that. You can go and do just some wild things with a cyber chair that you just can't do with limbs without, like Diamond also pointed out, sacrificing your humanity, or maybe the platform of cyber chair works better to allow you to do certain things that wouldn't really be possible as embedding in your body, right? So yeah, no, I think cyber chairs are very valid and very, very, very good to have rules for and rules for navigating. I know Diamond ran a campaign that I was part of not that long ago, where one of our characters, one of the player characters in there, was in a cyber chair, a spider cyber chair, like the entire campaign. And part of that character's narrative was that they wanted to be in an FBC body so that they could restore some of their like actual movement and stuff like that and become healthy again. And like that was part of their character arc. The cyber chair is what added punctuation to that, which is really, really, really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, the cyber chair, it's not a sign of weakness. It is just another form of mobility.
Yep.
And yes, of course, for you filthy min-maxers, it's just free 5 move if you so wish to just dump your normal move to 2.
Yeah. But even that can be used for like cool, like some of the min-maxing things that you can do are genuinely interesting for something like that. Because it is like, why does your character move 2? And it's like, well, they had a really bad injury from a car crash when they were a kid. Their legs don't work right due to a spinal injury that didn't properly heal or couldn't be properly worked on because we didn't have the money. So now I'm stuck in this chair. Like, they might be good in every other way. They just are stuck in that chair, right? So, like, that to me is such a cool story to tell if you want to tell that from that character's perspective, I think anyone claiming that cyber chair is bad or is useless or is a, outmoded product misses the point entirely of disability, disability visibility and representation in media. I don't think you understand why that's important.
All right.
So this Naked Edge Runners thing.
All right, so this one, it's more the title caught my eye, and it's a lot more talking about appearance, which honestly we don't talk too heavily on this one just because of like how often like it does get like put aside, but this is by Infinitive. I have been GMing for a couple years now, and I've been reading about GMs and players not finding uses for quote-unquote weak weapons and armor. GMs seem to fall back on having all mooks carry assault rifles and light armor jacks just to pose any sort of threat to players. Just wanted to throw my 2 ennies in on how I challenge my chooms as they maneuver the city in varying social situations. My players only wear armor jacks and assault for assault gigs, combat zones, official bodyguard work, or in the wilderness in open sea. Why? Nobody in a public or secured space is going to trust a stranger openly wearing weapons and obvious body armor, such as the porcupine as mentioned in Toggle's Temple.
Yep.
And listen up, you primitive screwheads. If I'm running a Rancho Coronado Oasis, I'm going to be a little uneasy if some North Hollywood shootout looking gonks come sauntering through the doors cruising for key lime kibble. Civilians will be nervous and usually easy to persuade, but there will be others that see some trouble in the neighborhood and call for help. with probable cause, the jealous NCPD will stop the PCs on the street and try to shake them down for a bribe, depending on the precinct. In corporate or gang territory, the players will be stopped and forcefully disarmed. If they resist, reinforcements may be called in. It's gotten ugly for them more than once, and they've won some, but definitely lost everything in Street Fighter 2. The Mimic Kit does add some depth. If their armor jacks look like regular clothing at a glance, it won't be passively noticed unless they are up against a search. The PCs are being searched. It's both for weapons and armor, and if they're wearing a Mimic Kit, it isn't concealable, so they automatically fail as it has to be removed. Well, I thought the Mimic Kit literally just became concealed armor.
I'll look up the rules for that while you continue reading.
Yeah. Kevlar and leather typically get a pass, but not always, depending on where they are and what socioeconomics control the area. So potentially violent jobs must be completed without open weapons or worn armor, such as killing a guest or at an exclusive dinner party while disguised. Concealed weapons naturally come into play here, though players did have to check them at the door. They had to resort to strangling the target to death in the restroom, costing some humanity but getting the job done. Subdermal armor was great to have in that situation, but the target fought back. But just didn't leave a dent. It added a whole new dimension of using to the usual smash and grab. My players typically report more tactical engagement when they're without armor, as they have to stay engaged and de-escalate situations. Generally have an awareness of what's going on at all times. A medium handgun or a medium melee weapon suddenly becomes a serious threat, especially when a team of low-level security mooks can one-shot a whole party if things go sideways. I add a little spice with 30-second timed combat terms. Time is paused to research exotic weapons or abilities, but I understand that that level ago is not for everyone. We agreed to the terms at session 0 and wouldn't be any other way. How about you? Do you have any tactical variations or unusual mission situations in your game? Love to hear your stories or ideas.
So yeah.
The armor is one of those things where some like the description of it, like Kevlar can even be woven into clothing.
Yeah.
To a point that it's unsurprising if someone actually is wearing like a Kevlar hoodie, or their beanie happens to be made of Kevlar. But did you find the Mimic clothing kit?
Yeah, so it doesn't say anything about concealable, but usually armor and concealable are not keywords that need to interact with each other. Mostly it's weapons. You're gonna get weird looks if you're mil-spec'd out the wazoo with your armor as well, but generally Mimic clothing is there to be like a purpose. It's to fill the purpose of like, I am wearing a jacket. That jacket is lined with ceramic and Kevlar so that I am armored, right? In my opinion, light armor jack, because I've heard differing opinions on this, and I am going to be really interested to see, because I've heard rumor that in I forget where I heard this, so take this entirely with a grain of salt, but I've heard rumor that in Edgerunner's Guide to Night City, there's going to be some definition given to what the safety rating of every district is, in terms of like, if you're in a safe zone, what does that mean about obvious weapons, obvious armor, things like that, right? Like what does that cause the passerby there, or local businesses or local security? How do they respond and react to that, right? But in my opinion, if you are wearing armor within your clothing, Night City, no matter where you are in it, is a dangerous place. Having armor embedded in your jacket does not read the same as having a dedicated bulletproof vest, right? That is, I'm trying to be safe, and I don't know in this city when someone will pull a gun on me, so I'm staying safe by armoring this, right? Like, there's no good reason in most scenarios, unless you're going to meet with like a mob boss, for example, why you need to doff your armor, to me, right? Doffing armor makes no sense. Because, like, even if, say you were to go out in public right now, right? Like, Diamond or I were going to go, you know, down the street to a strip mall and pick up some takeout Chinese, right? And both of us, for some reason, decide that we're going to put, like, a Kevlar vest on underneath our clothing, right? And it might not be so subtle, depending on the clothing we're wearing. That might be obvious enough to see. We're going to get weird looks every now and then, maybe. But no one's going to tell us when we walk into that business, yeah, I need you to take that Kevlar vest off. However, if I've got a gun that you can clearly see, they're absolutely going to tell me not in here. They're going to tell me to go back out or disarm myself somehow, checking with like someone at a front desk if I'm going into a club like that. You know, like, that is a totally reasonable thing to have them do. I just don't see armor falling under the same categorization when it's concealed armor like that as it is for, you know, like, weapons. Weapons are a very different thing.
I do think I see, like, where they're going with that. You know, the players are always wearing light armor jack. It is, like, you know, like, you have to throw, like, you know, booster gangers with assault rifles and light armor jack to deal with it. Of course, there will be times where you will have places where, you know, light armor jack might be inappropriate. You know, showing up, you know, in, let's say, you know, your full flak set to a private dinner party.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not gonna work.
But executive
you know,
armor is totally chill.
Yeah. However, you know, maybe you're showing up there and you might know that at most someone might have a medium pistol. You might be able to get away with just wearing Kevlar quietly in there, get the job done, and leave. That is a possible thing you can do.
Yeah. Like, my take on this is, and if you want to get really concealed about it, you get some skin weave or some subdermal armor. And no one will know that you're wearing armor. Like, it'll bounce off, and unless they got like a really good look at like your whole chest, they're not going to see the subdermal plates that make up that armor. And so they are gonna like just accept like, yep, they're not armored. Let you walk right through. That's why I think policing for armor that goes like at least up to Kevlar, you're pretty much good anywhere in the city, in my opinion. Like, you might get an odd look here or there, but no one's going to tell you doff the Kevlar vest, right? Light armor jack, they might do it if it's really obvious. But again, if you're wearing a laser light street jacket, are they really going to tell you, yeah, no, take the jacket off? No, they're not. Like, because it's just armor woven into the clothing. Like, no one would tell John Wick to take his, you know, executive armor equivalent off. Like, that's stupid. I can commiserate to an extent with the, yeah, my mooks aren't doing shit to the players, but I would then argue a couple things. One, very heavy pistols do penetrate armor, so give them those, right? Like, those aren't more expensive than other kinds of pistols, so give them VHPs. If they're there to attack the players, really have them attack them with that, or poor quality shotguns. Like, these are fine. Right? I don't see I've never seen an issue with that. I think that making that an argument is kinda goofy. Yeah, I don't know.
Alright. Let me see if there was any last ones, because I know we're kind of coming down to it. I wanted to see if we can get one more post, possibly.
Sure. Let me
Alright. I am just trying to see if there is anything else here. I don't really see anything like hot off the line that it's just like it's gonna make me you know, raise an eyebrow here. So I do think actually in that case we'll definitely do another r/cyberpunk RED soon.
Yeah.
I might even put some posts out to the Reddit asking about some certain things, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah,
All right.
The reason we wanted to dive into this was mostly because the ELO takes were like, they were spicy. And I'm like, the ELO takes don't have to be the spicy guys. They could be more reasonable than what we're seeing. Like, ELO is valuable. Minigames are valuable. Just because you don't see the value in it does not make them invaluable for the community at large. But yeah.
All right. So with that, I think we are good here. Did you have any questions for Q&A?
I do not.
Because I don't have any questions.
Nope.
All right. I suppose on that note then, if you enjoyed today's episode, I know today is a little, off the hinge unhinged compared to some of the others where I don't normally dive into Reddit. Not too often, but figured every once in a while we should have a look elsewhere. Come check us out. Come check out our previous episodes on Spotify or YouTube. And as always, feel free to follow, subscribe. Come check us out on Twitch. Come check us out on StartPlaying. It's going to be a great time. Until then, folks, I'm Diamond Dust.
And I'm Emmerron.
We'll see you soon. Bye-bye now.
Bye, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.